Eden's hands trembled as she clutched the legal documents she'd found in the trash. The marble floor of the Fontana estate gleamed beneath her worn sneakers, and her reflection stared back at her, a tired woman in a faded uniform holding papers that could destroy everything. "Put those down." Julian Fontana's voice cut through the silence like a blade. She froze. Her heart hammered against her ribs as his footsteps echoed across the vast foyer. Every instinct screamed at her to drop the documents and disappear into the walls like she'd been trained to do. Good maids were invisible. Good maids didn't ask questions. But these weren't just any papers. "Mr. Fontana, Her voice cracked. "I said put them down, Eden." His tone left no room for argument. He stood at the top of the grand staircase, still wearing his shirt from the meeting, sleeves rolled up, tie loosened, exhaustion carved into his sharp features. Even disheveled, Julian Fontana commanded absolute authority. She should have obeyed. She should have walked away. Instead, she looked him straight in the eye. "They're lying to you." The words hung in the air between them. His dark eyes narrowed, and for the first time in 3 months of working in his home, Eden saw something flicker across his face that wasn't cold calculation or controlled fury. It was curiosity. How had a maid, a woman he barely acknowledged, just said something his entire team of lawyers refused to tell him? If you want to discover how this story began and what happened after this moment, subscribe to the channel and leave in the comments where you're watching from. Each view helps bring more stories like this one. 3 months earlier, Eden Sinclair had stood outside the iron gates of the Fontana estate with a reference letter she'd fought like hell to get, and a prayer she didn't quite believe in anymore. The mansion loomed before her, all glass and white stone, perched on a hill overlooking the city like a fortress. Security cameras tracked her every movement. Men in black suits stood at strategic points, earpieces glinting in the sun. This wasn't just wealth. This was power. "Eden Sinclair?" A woman in a crisp suit appeared at the gate. "I'm Mrs. Chen, the house manager. You're early." "Yes, ma'am. I apologize if—" "Don't apologize for punctuality." Mrs. Chen's expression softened slightly. "It's refreshing. Come with me." The interior took Eden's breath away. Marble floors stretched endlessly. Crystal chandeliers sparkled overhead. Original artwork lined the walls, pieces she'd only seen in museums during school field trips years ago when life still held possibilities. "Mr. Fontana requires absolute discretion," Mrs. Chen explained as they walked. "You'll clean the east wing, his private quarters, his office, his personal spaces. You do not speak unless spoken to. You do not ask questions. You do not discuss anything you see or hear. Understood?" Eden nodded. She'd worked for wealthy families before, though none quite like this. The Fontanas weren't just rich, they were infamous. Everyone knew Julian Fontana controlled half the city's underground operations, though nothing had ever been proven in court. "The pay is triple what you indicated you were making at your previous position," Mrs. Chen continued, "health insurance included. But one mistake, one breach of trust, and you're gone. No references, no second chances." "I understand." "Good. He's in a meeting now. You'll start in his office." The office was a cathedral of dark wood and leather. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city. Eden worked methodically, dusting shelves lined with legal texts and business journals. She'd learned long ago to make herself invisible, to move through rooms like a ghost. That's when she heard the voices. "Telling you, Julian, this deal is clean. My team has reviewed every document." The voice was smooth, persuasive. "Sign today, and you'll own the entire waterfront development." Eden shouldn't have listened, but something in the lawyer's tone made her pause. "The zoning permits are legitimate." That was Julian Fontana. Deep, controlled, dangerous even in inquiry. "Absolutely. I've personally verified." "Then why does the city council have no record of approval?" Julian's voice dropped to a lethal quiet. "I called them myself this morning." Silence. Eden's hands stilled on the bookshelf. She shouldn't be here, shouldn't be hearing this. There must be some administrative delay. "Get out." Julian's words cracked like a whip. "And tell Moretti if he thinks he can trap me in a fraud scheme, he's welcome to try. I'll bury him first." Footsteps. The door slammed. Eden's heart raced as she realized her position, trapped in the office with a man who'd just discovered betrayal. She tried to slip toward the door. "Stop!" She froze. Julian Fontana turned from the window. Up close, he was even more imposing. Over 6 feet of controlled power, sharp jaw, dark hair swept back, eyes that could strip away every pretense. He couldn't have been more than 35, but he carried himself with the authority of someone who'd commanded empires. "How long have you been here?" His gaze pinned her in place. I'm the new maid, sir. I was just finishing—" "How much did you hear?" Eden's throat went dry. One wrong answer, and she'd disappear. That's how men like Julian Fontana operated. No witnesses, no loose ends. But something in his eyes wasn't cruel. It was calculating, yes. Dangerous. Absolutely. But not cruel. "Enough to know your lawyer just tried to trap you in something illegal," she heard herself say. His eyebrows rose fractionally. "And why would my maid care about my business dealings?" "I don't, sir. But my mama always said you can tell a lot about a man by how his associates treat him when they think he's not looking." She met his gaze steadily. "That man didn't respect you enough, to be honest." For a long moment, Julian studied her. Eden felt naked under that scrutiny, as if he could see every secret she carried. The second job she worked nights, the small apartment she shared with her sister, the scholarship applications she filled out at 2 a.m. hoping for a better future. "What's your name?" "Eden Sinclair, sir." "Finish here, Eden. And remember, I don't discuss what I see or hear." "Yes, sir." Something flickered in his expression. Approval, maybe, or surprise. Then he turned back to the window, dismissing her. But as Eden left the office, her hands trembling slightly, she couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted. She'd been seen, truly seen, by a man who made it his business to see everything. That evening, as she rode the bus home through neighborhoods that grew progressively rougher, Eden replayed the encounter. She should have kept her mouth shut. Should have stayed invisible. Instead, she'd spoken truth to power. Her phone buzzed. A text from Mrs. Chen. "Report to East Wing tomorrow, 6 a.m. sharp. Mr. Fontana has requested you specifically for his personal spaces." Eden stared at the message, her stomach knotting with equal parts fear and something she refused to name. She'd been noticed by Julian Fontana. God help her, she didn't know if that was a blessing or a curse. The next morning, Eden arrived at 5:45 a.m. The estate was quieter at this hour. Guards changing shifts, kitchen staff preparing breakfast, the city below still wrapped in pre-dawn shadows. Mrs. Chen met her at the service entrance. "Mr. Fontana rises at 6:30. His breakfast is prepared by Chef Marco. Your responsibility is to maintain his private quarters. Bedroom, bathroom, office, sitting room. Everything must be pristine before he sees it." Eden nodded, following Mrs. Chen through corridors she hadn't seen before. The deeper they went into the East Wing, the more the mansion felt less like a showcase and more like a home, if homes could be fortresses. "One more thing." Mrs. Chen paused outside a set of double doors. "Mr. Fontana values honesty above all else. If you see something concerning, you report it to me immediately, understood?" "Yes, ma'am." Mrs. Chen left her with a keycard and explicit instructions. Eden entered Julian's private domain, with her heart in her throat. The bedroom was surprisingly understated, still luxurious, but without the ostentatious displays she'd seen elsewhere in the mansion. A massive bed dominated the space, made with military precision. Books lined built-in shelves, not just business texts but philosophy, history, literature in multiple languages. She worked quickly, efficiently, noting small details. The reading glasses left on the nightstand suggested he spent late nights working. The coffee cup, still half full, meant he'd been up before dawn. The framed photograph tucked in a drawer he'd left partially open showed a younger Julian with an older couple, all of them smiling. Family. He'd had family once. Curiosity is dangerous in this house. Eden spun around, nearly dropping her cleaning supplies. Julian stood in the doorway, fresh from the shower, dark slacks, white shirt unbuttoned at the collar, hair still damp. The morning light cut across his features, highlighting the sharp planes of his face. "I'm sorry, Mr. Fontana, I wasn't—" "You were looking at the photograph." He walked past her, and she caught the scent of expensive cologne and something else. Cedar, maybe, or sandalwood. "My parents. They died 10 years ago." Eden didn't know what to say. Men like Julian Fontana didn't share personal information with the help. "I'm sorry for your loss, sir." He turned, studying her with those penetrating dark eyes. "You meant that?" It wasn't a question, but she answered anyway. "Yes, sir. I lost my mama 3 years ago. That kind of pain. It doesn't fade. You just learn to carry it differently." Something shifted in his expression, a crack in the armor he wore so carefully. For just a moment, Eden glimpsed the man beneath the reputation. Someone who'd loved and lost. Someone who understood grief. The moment passed. Julian's mask slipped back into place. I have meetings today. I need you to organize my office. Files from the Moretti situation need to be secured and catalogued. Of course, sir. And Eden? He paused at the door. Thank you. For yesterday. Before she could respond, he was gone. The office took most of the day to organize. Eden worked methodically, sorting through documents and files as instructed. She tried not to read too much. It wasn't her place, but certain things were impossible to ignore. Legal contracts with annotations in Julian's precise handwriting, notes questioning discrepancies, communications between lawyers that grew increasingly evasive. The Moretti situation was worse than she'd realized. Someone was trying to frame Julian for illegal development deals using falsified permits and forged documents. If he'd signed those contracts, he'd have been exposed to massive fraud charges. Find something interesting? Eden nearly jumped out of her skin. Julian leaned against the doorframe, jacket discarded, sleeves rolled up, looking exhausted. Mr. Fontana, It's past 7 p.m., Eden. You should have left hours ago. She glanced at the clock, surprised. She'd been so absorbed in the work she'd lost track of time. I wanted to finish organizing the files, sir. These documents, they're important. He moved into the room, and Eden became acutely aware of how empty the mansion suddenly felt. Most of the staff had gone home. It was just the two of them and the security team scattered throughout the property. What did you think when you read them? Julian asked quietly. I didn't mean to. I know you read them, Eden. I can see it in your eyes. You're too intelligent not to understand what you were looking at. He sat on the edge of his desk, close enough that she could see the fine lines around his eyes, the exhaustion he carried. So tell me, what did you think? Eden's mind raced. This was a test. It had to be. I think, she said carefully, that someone is trying very hard to destroy you, and they're using your own caution against you, making you paranoid about legitimate deals so you'll miss the trap in the fake ones. Julian's eyes sharpened. Explain. The Moretti contracts are obviously fraudulent, but while you've been focused on proving that, someone's been preparing legitimate-looking deals with subtle flaws buried deep. If you sign those, thinking you've learned to spot the obvious traps. She trailed off. I'll miss the real danger. He stood, moving to the window. The city lights glittered below them like fallen stars. How did you see that? My daddy ran a small business before he got sick, Eden admitted. He taught me to read contracts, look for patterns, said the devil's always in the details that seemed too good to question. Julian turned to look at her, and the intensity in his gaze made her breath catch. Your father was a wise man. Yes, sir, he was. They stood in silence for a moment, Maid and Kingpin, separated by worlds, yet somehow seeing each other clearly in this quiet space. You should go home, Julian said finally. It's late. Yes, sir. Eden gathered her things, acutely aware of his eyes following her movements. She was at the door when he spoke again. Eden, she turned. Tomorrow, I want you in the meetings with my legal team. Bring those files. Her eyes widened. Sir, I'm not qualified. You saw something 4 lawyers missed. You're qualified enough. His expression brooked no argument. 6 p.m. Conference room. Don't be late. Eden nodded, her mind reeling, and left before she could say something foolish. Outside, walking to the bus stop in the cool evening air, she wrapped her arms around herself. Julian Fontana had just invited his maid to a legal meeting. Either he was testing her, or he was beginning to trust her. Eden wasn't sure which possibility terrified her more. Her phone buzzed. An unknown number. Car service will pick you up tomorrow. 5:30 p.m. J.E. She stared at the message, her heart doing something complicated in her chest. This wasn't just a job anymore. She was being pulled into Julian Fontana's world, a world of power, danger, and secrets that could destroy them both. The black SUV arrived precisely at 5:30 p.m. Eden had agonized over what to wear. She didn't own business attire appropriate for a legal meeting, but her standard uniform felt wrong too. She'd settled on a simple black dress she usually reserved for church, paired with her one good pair of shoes. The driver, a large man with a stone-faced expression, opened the door without a word. Eden slid into leather seats that probably cost more than 3 months of her rent. At the mansion, Mrs. Chen met her at the entrance with a knowing look. Conference room is on the 3rd floor. Mr. Fontana is already there with his team. Eden climbed the grand staircase, her heart hammering. She could hear voices, tense, argumentative, as she approached the open conference room doors. Absolutely ridiculous, Julian. You can't bring domestic staff into confidential legal discussions. A man in an expensive suit gestured emphatically. This is highly irregular. What's irregular, Julian's voice cut through the room like steel, is how my team of high-priced lawyers failed to notice a pattern my maid identified in one afternoon. Eden stepped into the doorway. 5 pairs of eyes turned toward her. The conference room was all glass and chrome, a war room for a modern empire. Julian sat at the head of a massive table, still in his suit from earlier meetings. 4 lawyers occupied the other seats, all men, all clearly irritated by her presence. "Gentlemen," Julian said calmly, "this is Eden Sinclair. She'll be assisting with document review." "This is preposterous," one lawyer started. "Sit down, Marcus," Julian commanded, "or you're fired." Marcus sat down. Julian's eyes found Eden's, and something passed between them. An acknowledgement, maybe, or a silent promise of protection. "Eden, please present your findings." Her throat went dry. She'd prepared all evening, reviewing the documents, making notes on scraps of paper. But standing before these powerful men in their $1,000 suits, she felt every inch the poor girl from the wrong side of the city. Then she remembered her father's voice. "Truth doesn't care about fancy degrees, baby girl. It's just truth." Eden moved to the head of the table, spreading out the documents she'd organized. "There are 3 sets of contracts here. The Moretti development deals, obviously fraudulent, meant to be caught. The Riverside properties, legitimate on the surface but with embedded clauses that would trigger fraud investigations within 6 months. And these." She pulled out a thin folder. "The Harbor District acquisitions, clean, legitimate. But everyone's been so focused on finding traps that nobody's noticed they're the real opportunity." Silence filled the room. One of the lawyers, an older man with silver hair, leaned forward. "How did you identify the embedded clauses?" "The language is too careful," Eden explained. "Legal documents are usually dense, but these are deliberately confusing. They use nested subclauses that reference permits filed under different municipal codes. It creates a paper trail that looks legitimate until someone investigates the actual permit numbers, which don't exist in those jurisdictions." "Jesus Christ," another lawyer muttered. "She's right. I reviewed those contracts myself and missed it." Julian's expression remained neutral, but Eden caught the flash of vindication in his eyes. "Marcus, I want those Harbor District deals expedited. Full due diligence, but move quickly. Someone's trying to distract us from real opportunities while setting traps in the obvious ones." "And the Riverside properties?" Marcus asked stiffly. "Send them back to Moretti's people with detailed notes on every illegal clause. Let them know we're aware of their game." Julian's smile was razor-sharp. "Then prepare litigation. If they want to play dirty, we'll bury them legally." The meeting continued for another hour. Eden contributed when asked, mostly staying quiet and observing. She watched Julian work, the way he commanded absolute attention, how he cut through bullshit with surgical precision, the respect he commanded even when his lawyers disagreed with him. This was a man who'd built an empire on intelligence and ruthlessness in equal measure. Finally, Julian dismissed his team. They filed out, some casting curious glances at Eden, others pointedly ignoring her existence. When they were alone, Julian poured 2 glasses of whiskey from a crystal decanter. He offered one to Eden. She hesitated. "Sir, I don't think—" "You just saved me from a multi-million-dollar fraud scheme. Drink with me." She took the glass. The whiskey burned going down, but warmth spread through her chest. "How did you learn to read contracts like that?" Julian asked, settling into the chair beside her rather than across the table. The casual proximity sent her pulse racing. "My daddy's business partner tried to cheat him once. Used complicated legal language to hide the fact that he was stealing. Daddy lost almost everything before he figured it out." Eden stared into her glass. "He made me promise I'd learn to see through pretty words to the truth underneath." "Your father sounds like a remarkable man." "He was. The past tense still hurt. He died when I was 19. Cancer. We couldn't afford the treatments that might have saved him." Julian's jaw tightened. "I'm sorry." "That's why I work so hard," Eden continued, surprising herself with the confession. "My little sister's in community college. She's brilliant, wants to be a doctor. I'm going to make sure she gets there." "What about you?" Julian's dark eyes searched her face. What do you want, Eden? No one had asked her that in years. Everyone assumed she existed only to support others, to clean and serve and disappear. But Julian Fontana was looking at her like her answer mattered. I want... She paused, feeling vulnerable. I want to matter, to use my mind for something more than scrubbing floors, to be seen as someone with value beyond what I can do for others. You are seen, Julian said quietly. I see you. The air between them charged with something dangerous and undeniable. Eden's breath caught as Julian's hand moved toward her face, fingers barely grazing her cheek. Then his phone rang. The spell shattered. Julian answered tersely, his expression darkening. When? How many? I'm on my way. He stood, all business again. There's been an incident at one of my properties. I need to handle it. Of course, sir. Eden. He paused at the door. Be careful going home tonight. Take the car service. And... He seemed to war with himself before continuing. Thank you for trusting me with your story. Then he was gone, leaving Eden alone in the conference room with half a glass of whiskey and a heart that wouldn't stop racing. She'd crossed some invisible line tonight. She'd stopped being just the maid and become something else, something that terrified and thrilled her in equal measure. The car service dropped her off at her apartment building in the rough part of the city. As Eden climbed the stairs to her third-floor walk-up, she couldn't shake the memory of Julian's fingers almost touching her face. A man like him shouldn't look at a woman like her that way, but he had, and God help her, she'd wanted him to. 3 weeks later, Eden's life had transformed in ways she never imagined. She still cleaned Julian's private quarters each morning, but now she also spent hours in his office, reviewing contracts and business documents. He sought her opinion on deals, valued her perspective, trusted her judgment in ways his lawyers still resented. You're playing a dangerous game, Hermano, a voice said from the doorway. Eden looked up from the files she was reviewing. A man stood there, younger than Julian, dashingly handsome, with the same sharp features but an easier smile. You must be Eden, he said, extending his hand. I'm Marco Fontana, Julian's brother. Mr. Fontana. Eden shook his hand cautiously. Please call me Marco. Anyone who's managed to earn my brother's trust deserves first-name basis. He settled into a chair, studying her with open curiosity. He talks about you, you know. Heat crept up Eden's neck. I'm just doing my job, sir. Marco. My brother doesn't let anyone into his inner circle, especially not... He trailed off, diplomatic. Especially not the maid? Eden finished, meeting his eyes steadily. Marco had the grace to look chagrined. I was going to say, especially not people he's attracted to. Julian keeps those worlds very separate. Before Eden could process that revelation, Julian strode into the office. His expression darkened when he saw his brother. Marco, I didn't know you were visiting. Surprise. Marco grinned, clearly enjoying his brother's discomfort. Came to see if the rumors were true. They are. You've gone soft, Fratello. Get out. Protective, too. Interesting. Marco stood, winking at Eden. Nice meeting you, Eden. Take care of my stubborn brother. When Marco left, tension filled the room. Julian moved to his desk, jaw tight. I apologize for my brother. He has no sense of boundaries. It's fine, Eden said quietly. Mr. Fontana, Julian, what did he mean about rumors? Julian was silent for a long moment. When he finally spoke, his voice was low, controlled. People talk. About how much time we spend together. About how I trust your judgment over lawyers who've worked for me for years. About... He paused, meeting her eyes. About how I look at you. Eden's heart stuttered. How do you look at me? Like I shouldn't. Julian's honesty was stark, raw. Like you're not an employee. Like you're... Like I'm what? He crossed to her in 3 strides. Eden's back hit the bookshelf as Julian caged her in, hands on either side of her shoulders. He didn't touch her, maintained that careful distance, but she could feel the heat radiating from him, see the war in his dark eyes. Like you're mine, he breathed. Like I have any right to think that. Like the difference in our worlds doesn't matter. Maybe it doesn't, Eden whispered. It does. I'm dangerous, Eden. My life is violence and power and choices that would horrify you. You deserve better than... Don't tell me what I deserve. She found her courage, reaching up to touch his face. Julian's eyes closed at the contact, as if her touch caused him physical pain. You see me, Julian, really see me. Do you know how rare that is? I could destroy you just by wanting you. My enemies would use you against me. You'd become a target. I can't, I won't, put you in that kind of danger. I'm already in danger, Eden said. The moment I spoke up that first day, the moment you started trusting me, I became part of your world. You don't get to protect me by pushing me away now." Julian's hand moved to cradle her face, thumb brushing her cheekbone with devastating gentleness. "You're the bravest person I've ever met, and the most foolish." "Then we're well matched." He leaned in slowly, giving her every chance to pull away. Eden didn't. She'd wanted this, wanted him, since that first moment when he'd truly seen her. Their lips met softly at first, questioning. Then Julian's control snapped. He kissed her like a man starving, like she was air and he'd been drowning. Eden melted into him, hands fisting in his shirt, tasting whiskey and want and something sweeter. Possibility. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Julian rested his forehead against hers. "This changes everything," he murmured. "I know. My world is dangerous, Eden. I need you to understand that." "I understand. And I need you to know—" He pulled back to look at her directly. "If you're mine, I protect what's mine. Completely. Absolutely. No one will ever hurt you." The possessiveness should have frightened her. Instead, it made her feel cherished, valued, seen in ways she'd never experienced. "And if I'm yours," Eden said carefully, "you need to understand that I won't be kept in the dark. I won't be shuffled away when things get dangerous. We're partners or we're nothing." Julian's smile was slow, genuine, transforming his entire face. "Partners." He kissed her again, sealing the promise. They had 2 more blissful hours before everything fell apart. The call came at 9 p.m. Julian answered, his expression shifting from contentment to fury in seconds. "When? Are you sure? Lock down the estate. No one in or out without my direct authorization." He hung up, already moving. "Eden, you need to leave now." "What's wrong?" "Moretti knows about you, about us." Julian's voice was deadly calm, the tone of a man preparing for war. "He's making moves. My sources say he's planning something. I'm not leaving you." "Eden, we're partners, remember? Tell me what's happening." Julian's jaw clenched, but he nodded. "Moretti's using you as bait. He's spread word that you're my weakness. He's hoping I'll make a mistake trying to protect you. Then we use that against him." "Absolutely not. I won't risk—" The windows exploded inward. Julian threw himself over Eden, shielding her body with his as glass rained down. Gunfire erupted, rapid, terrifying, deadly. "Stay down!" Julian shouted. He had a gun in his hand. Eden hadn't even seen him draw it. Security burst into the room, returning fire. Through the chaos, Eden saw them. Men in tactical gear, weapons raised, systematic in their assault. This wasn't just an attack. This was an execution attempt. Julian pulled her toward the panic room hidden behind his bookshelf. "Inside, now." "Not without you. I'll be right behind you. Go." But as Eden stumbled toward the panic room, she saw something that made her blood freeze. One of the attackers wasn't firing at Julian. He was aiming at her. "Julian!" she screamed. He turned, saw the threat, moved with liquid grace to shield her again. The shot rang out. Julian stumbled, blood blooming across his shoulder. "No!" Eden caught him as he fell, his weight nearly taking them both down. "Julian, stay with me, please." His security team neutralized the attackers with brutal efficiency. In less than 2 minutes, the threat was eliminated. But Julian was bleeding in Eden's arms, his skin going pale, eyes fighting to stay focused. "Call an ambulance!" Eden shouted, pressing her hands against the wound. Blood, so much blood, seeped through her fingers. "Julian, look at me. Stay awake. Please stay awake." "Eden," his voice was weak. "The safe. Code is your birthday. Documents inside. Prove everything. Stop talking. Save your strength. Listen." He gripped her hand with surprising force. "If I don't make it—" "You're going to make it. I won't let you go. Do you hear me? I won't let you go." Sirens wailed in the distance. Julian's eyes closed. Eden pressed harder against the wound, tears streaming down her face, and prayed to a God she'd stopped believing in years ago. She'd found something precious. She couldn't lose it now. The hospital waiting room was sterile and cold. Eden sat in a plastic chair, Julian's blood still staining her clothes, and watched the clock tick away hours. Marco had arrived within 30 minutes, bringing a team of security and a private doctor. Now he paced the corridor like a caged tiger, while Eden sat frozen, replaying those terrible moments again and again. "You saved his life," Marco said quietly, sitting beside her. The paramedic said your pressure on the wound stopped him from bleeding out. Eden couldn't speak, couldn't think past the image of Julian's pale face, his blood on her hands. He was right about you, Marco continued. You're tougher than you look. The surgeon finally emerged at dawn. Mr. Fontana is stable. The bullet missed major arteries, but he'll need extensive recovery. He's asking for... The surgeon glanced at his notes, confused. Someone named Eden. Eden was on her feet before the surgeon finished speaking. Julian looked smaller in the hospital bed, an illusion created by tubes and monitors and white sheets. But when his eyes opened and found her, his smile was real. "Hey," he rasped. "Hey yourself." Eden moved to his side, taking his hand carefully. "You scared me." "Sorry." He squeezed her fingers weakly. "Did you open the safe?" "Not yet. I was too busy making sure you didn't die." "Stubborn woman." "Stubborn man." Eden's voice cracked. "Don't you ever do that again. Don't you dare take a bullet for me." "I'd take 100 bullets for you." Julian's expression was fierce despite his weakness. "You're mine to protect. That's not negotiable." "Partners," Eden reminded him. "Partners," he agreed, "which means you need to open that safe. The documents inside prove Moretti's entire operation. Fraud, money laundering, connections to legitimate businesses. It's everything we need to destroy him legally. Later. Right now you need to rest." "Eden," his grip tightened. "Promise me you'll be careful. Moretti will come after you again." "He can try." Something flickered in Julian's eyes, pride mixed with fear. "I love you. I should probably say that while I'm conscious enough to mean it." Eden's breath caught. "You're saying that while high on painkillers." "I'm saying it because I almost died without telling you." He pulled her closer. "I love you, Eden Sinclair. Your courage, your intelligence, your stubborn refusal to be intimidated. I love that you see past what I am to who I want to be." Tears slipped down Eden's cheeks. "I love you too. Even though you're impossible and overprotective and—" He kissed her, cutting off her words. It was gentle, careful, filled with promise. "Marry me," Julian whispered against her lips. "You're delirious. I'm serious. Marry me. Be my partner in everything. Business, life, all of it." Eden pulled back to study his face. He meant it. Every word. "Ask me again when you're not on painkillers," she said softly, "and when I'm not covered in your blood. I'll ask you every day until you say yes. Deal." 2 weeks later, Julian was released from the hospital with strict recovery orders. He ignored most of them, instead focusing on taking down Moretti's empire. The documents in Julian's safe were exactly what he'd promised. Irrefutable evidence of crimes spanning decades. But turning them over to authorities required strategy. Moretti had politicians and judges in his pocket. "We need someone clean," Eden said, reviewing the options. "Someone Moretti hasn't bought." They found her, a federal prosecutor with a reputation for going after powerful criminals. District Attorney Rachel Chen, ironically, Mrs. Chen's daughter. "The world is smaller than we think," Julian observed when they made the connection. The meeting took place in a secure location. Rachel Chen reviewed the documents with growing excitement. "This is enough to bring down Moretti's entire operation," she said. "The fraud alone could put him away for 20 years. With the money laundering evidence." She looked up at Julian. "You realize you're implicating yourself in some of these transactions?" "I know." Julian's voice was steady. "That's why I'm offering full cooperation in exchange for immunity. I want out of this life, Rachel. I want to go legitimate." Rachel studied him for a long moment, then glanced at Eden. "This is because of her, isn't it?" "This is because I'm tired of looking over my shoulder," Julian corrected. "Because I want to build something that won't put the people I love in danger. Eden showed me that's possible." Rachel nodded slowly. "I'll take this to my team. But Julian, once we move on Moretti, there's no going back. He'll know it came from you. Let him know." Julian's smile was dangerous. "I'm done hiding." The operation took 3 months to plan. Federal agents, RICO charges, simultaneous raids on 20 locations. When they finally moved, Moretti's empire crumbled in a single day. Eden watched the news coverage from Julian's office, now legitimately his office in a corporation he'd restructured to eliminate all illegal operations. "It's over," she said softly as Moretti was led away in handcuffs. Julian wrapped his arms around her from behind, resting his chin on her shoulder. "The old life is over. Our new one is just beginning." He turned her to face him, then dropped to one knee. "I promised I'd ask every day. Eden Sinclair, will you marry me?" Will you build this new life with me? Be my partner in everything? The ring was simple, elegant, perfect. Not ostentatious, but meaningful. Eden didn't hesitate. Yes? Julian stood, pulling her into his arms and kissing her like it was their first time and last time, and every time in between. I have something to tell you, Eden whispered when they broke apart. What? I applied to law school, got accepted. I start in the fall. Julian's grin was brilliant. Of course you did. You're brilliant, Eden. You'll be an incredible lawyer. I learned from the best. You learned from yourself. I just gave you the opportunity to show what you've always been capable of. Outside, the city sparkled in the afternoon sun. A new world, their world, stretched before them, full of possibility and promise and the future they'd fought so hard to build. Eden had started as a maid in a mansion. She'd become a partner to a king, and now she was becoming herself, powerful in her own right, valued for her mind, her courage, her heart. Some love stories begin with fairy tale meetings. Theirs began with truth, with a woman who refused to stay silent and a man who learned to listen. And that, Eden thought as Julian kissed her again, was so much better than any fairy tale. 2 years later, Eden Sinclair Fontana stood in her office at Fontana Legal Enterprises, Julian's completely legitimate business empire, and reviewed case files with her team. She'd graduated law school at the top of her class. Now she headed the corporate compliance division, ensuring everything Julian built stayed on the right side of the law. Mrs. Fontana? Her assistant knocked. Your husband is here. Eden smiled. Julian appeared in the doorway, still impossibly handsome in his tailored suit, now carrying a small figure on his hip. Mama! Their daughter, Sophia, named after Eden's mother, reached for her with chubby hands. Hey, baby girl. Eden took Sophia, breathing in her sweet scent. What are you two doing here? We missed you, Julian said simply. Thought we'd kidnap you for lunch. I have 3 meetings. I rescheduled them. He grinned, unrepentant. Partners, remember? Sometimes the senior partner pulls rank. You're impossible. You love me anyway. I do. Eden kissed him softly, Sophia giggling between them. Let's go to lunch. They left the office together. Husband, wife, daughter. A family built from courage and trust, and a woman who'd refused to stay silent when truth needed speaking. As they stepped into the elevator, Sophia playing with Eden's necklace, Julian pulled his wife close. Happy? He asked. Eden looked at her daughter, her husband, thought about the work she did that mattered, the future they were building together. Incredibly, some people would always see the maid who'd married the mob boss, but those who mattered, those who truly saw them, understood the real story. They saw 2 people who'd found each other across impossible divides, who'd built something beautiful from violence and poverty and pain, who'd proven that love doesn't care about where you come from, only where you're willing to go. And they'd gone far together. They'd go farther still. This story has reached its end. If it touched your heart in any way, leave your like and share it with someone who also enjoys emotional stories. New stories arrive soon. Until next time.